Have you ever paused in the quiet of your day and suddenly felt a strange warmth in your chest? A name echoing in your thoughts? Feeling, fleeting but profound, that someone, somewhere was thinking of you? This is no accident. What if I told you there is a way to truly feel when someone is thinking about you? Not through guesses or hopes, but through deep, undeniable clarity. Stay with this journey to the end, and you'll understand not only how to sense it, but also why. The real question is, are you quiet enough to hear what has always been calling? When the wind stills, the surface of the lake becomes like glass, unbroken, reflective, infinite. It is then and only then that the stars can be seen resting upon it. Not because the stars have come closer, because the water has become still enough to hold them. In the same way, your mind is the lake. In the rush of thought, distraction, and emotion, its surface is disturbed, constantly rippling with noise. You may search the sky above or the waters below, but you will find no clarity while turbulence remains. However, once the breath becomes slow, once the body softens and the inner winds calm, a new kind of seeing becomes possible, one that does not come from the eyes, but from presence. In that moment of stillness, you may begin to feel the pull of something or someone reaching out to you, not with hands, but with thought, not with voice, with silent attention. A Zen master once told the story of a young disciple who was obsessed with reading the minds of others. "Teach me the secret of knowing others' thoughts," he pleaded. The master said nothing, only led him to a quiet pond in the mountains. He instructed and watched the surface. Hours passed. The disciple grew restless. "I see nothing," he finally said. "Exactly," replied the master. "Until you can sit long enough to see yourself clearly, thoughts of others will always remain a blur." Days turned into weeks. In time, the student began to notice things he had never felt before. A shiver in his skin when someone approached, a shift in the air when a loved one thought of him from afar. The mind he once used to grasp became a mirror he now used to receive. In our lives, this teaching is more relevant than ever. We are surrounded by noise, devices, opinions, obligations. Yet, amidst this flood of stimuli, there remains a subtle stream running beneath. It carries the energies of connection, attention, memory, and thought from others toward us. Most people never feel it because their internal lake is never still enough. But perhaps you've experienced it in unexpected moments. A sudden feeling to check your phone only to find a message from someone you hadn't thought of in days. Or a quiet moment in your room when your heart stirred without explanation, only for someone to later say, "I was thinking about you just then." These are not coincidences. They are reminders of the mirror within you. Philosopher Plotinus once wrote, "Withdraw into yourself and look. And if you do not find yourself beautiful yet, act as does the creator of a statue. Cut away all that is excessive and all that is crooked. When you chisel away the unnecessary agitation from your mind, what remains is a surface that reflects with clarity. It is there you begin to sense, not merely see, feel. The presence of another's thought, like a drop falling into still water. The ripple is gentle, but it is real. This is not a technique that can be mastered through force or intellect. It requires patience, repetition, devotion. To become the lake that sees the stars is a quiet art, not a loud one. One must learn to be with themselves fully, without reaching, without grasping. From this place, connection flows like spring water, natural, effortless, and clear. So sit by the lake of your own consciousness. Breathe until the wind settles. Feel the silence. And when the mirror becomes still, notice what appears. You may discover that the one you long to hear from was already whispering across the field of silence. waiting only for you to listen. And what of the breath, that sacred tide that draws in life and releases all that is no longer needed? Breath is not merely the function of lungs, not merely air moving in and out. It is a bridge between the seen and the unseen, between body and mind, between you and the subtle energies that surround you. To breathe consciously is to return home, to that space within where silence speaks and truth unfolds. There was once a monk who lived alone in the forest, far from the noise of the village. He was known not for his teachings, but for his silence. One day, a traveler came, seeking wisdom. What is the path to knowing the heart of another? The traveler asked. The monk gestured for him to sit and breathe. Minutes passed, then hours. The traveler grew weary, his thoughts racing. But the monk remained still, his breath like the ocean, steady, soft, eternal. At last, the traveler's breath matched the monk's. The noise in his mind dissolved. In that stillness, he felt a wave, not from outside, but from within. He did not hear a voice, but he understood something deeply. The presence of others can be felt only when you are fully present in yourself. We often try to understand others with words, gestures, or assumptions. Yet all of these arise on the surface. The breath takes us deeper. Much like the wind shapes the dunes of the desert, our breathing shapes our inner landscape. Shallow breath creates shallow perception. Breath carves depth. In clarity, in presence, and in awareness. A woman walking through a busy market may not notice the glance of a passerby, but if she were seated quietly beneath a tree, breathing slowly, watching the world with calm eyes, she might feel a presence. Even without turning her head, a thought directed at her might pass like a fragrance on the wind. This is the difference breath makes. Modern life rarely allows us this space. We breathe rapidly, unconsciously, caught in tension and task. But those who return to the breath return to the present moment, and in that presence, the subtle becomes visible. You may have noticed it in moments of solitude, sitting by the window as the sun sets, or waking up before the world stirs. A sudden wave of warmth passes through you. You place your hand on your chest and whisper, "Someone is thinking of me." And perhaps they are. The breath, when deep and aware, opens the door to that kind of knowing, not as a fantasy, but as a form of quiet recognition, like recognizing a bird's song in the distance. Not because it is loud, but because you have attuned your ears to listen. As Lao Tzu once said, silence is a source of great strength, and breath is the thread that leads us there. Each inhalation is a step inward. Each exhalation releases the tension that clouds perception. When practiced daily, conscious breathing becomes a kind of meditation, not just on the body, but on the energetic presence of others. With time, you begin to feel more clearly when someone's attention brushes against your awareness. Not all attention is felt with touch. Some is felt with breath. And here, the journey begins to deepen. For when you breathe in silence, you open a channel not only to the thoughts of others, but to the truth within yourself. Let your breath be like the waves against the quiet shore, gentle, persistent, nourishing. Let it carry away what does not serve. Let it bring to shore what you are ready to receive. And when you feel that stirring in your heart, moment of quiet knowing that someone is thinking of you, do not doubt it. Do not analyze it. Breathe into it. Feel it fully. And know that connection, in its purest form, does not need words. It only needs stillness and a breath willing to receive. As the lake reflects the stars and the breath carries the unseen, so too does your quiet heart become the bridge. You are not separate. You are not alone. You have simply forgotten how to listen, return. Breathe, feel. To be fully present is to return to the center of the storm, where stillness lives. Presence is not simply the act of being somewhere. It is the sacred art of truly being, with your breath, with your body, and with all that surrounds you, in a world that scatters our attention into 1,000 directions. To be present is to reclaim your wholeness. Most people wander through life like drifting leaves, caught in memories of yesterday or anxieties of tomorrow. Their bodies sit at the table, their minds pace elsewhere. And so they remain blind to the quiet threads that bind them to others. The mind that is elsewhere cannot feel what is here. Yet when you return, when you draw the mind back into the breath back into the body, something awakens, a sensitivity, an awareness not of thought, but of energy. In presence, you begin to feel not just your own heartbeat, but also the subtle rhythms of others, even those far away. There is an old Shaolin story of two friends who trained together in silence for years. One day, one left the temple to begin a journey across distant lands. They parted without words. Months passed. The one who remained sat in meditation beneath a pine tree as he did every dawn. One morning, he opened his eyes and felt something, a flutter in the chest, a sense of closeness, though no one stood nearby. That evening, he received a letter. It had been sent weeks before, yet it arrived that very day. In it, his friend had written, "I thought of you deeply this morning. My heart returned to the temple. Presence had created the bridge. Across mountains and time, one soul touched another. This sensitivity is not reserved for monks or mystics. You may have felt it in a cafe when you suddenly looked up, only to meet the gaze of someone already watching you, or in a dream where a loved one appeared, and the next day they reached out. The present moment holds such richness, but only if we are as in it. In the forest, a deer does not wonder what may come or what has passed. It feels everything around it. The wind, the scent of pine, the distant rustle in the grass. Its survival depends on presence. So too does our emotional clarity. When we drift, we misread, but when we are grounded in now, we see clearly, and more than that, we feel deeply. The philosopher Di Zhen once said, "Do not follow the ideas of others, but learn to listen to the voice within yourself. And to truly listen, one must be here, now, entirely." You may wonder how to develop this presence. Begin with breath, sit in stillness, observe without judgment, walk without haste, eat slowly, less. As the external world slows, the inner world sharpens. You become like a mountain lake, reflective, open, unmoved by passing clouds. In this state, you may begin to sense when someone's thoughts are gently knocking at your awareness, not as noise, but as a soft stirring, a pulse in the fabric of now. Presence is the only place this can be felt, for it is only in now that true connection resides. And just as presence opens us to connection, emotion leaves its trace. Every thought, every feeling is not confined to the mind in which it arose. Emotion is energy, and energy travels. It echoes beyond the skin, beyond time. When someone feels deeply, love, sorrow, longing, they release a vibration into the world. Just as a struck bell vibrates long after the hammer has withdrawn, so too does emotion linger, even in the absence of its source. There is a parable of a traveler who climbed a sacred mountain to seek answers from an old hermit. As the traveler ascended, he wept, overcome by memories of lost love. When he reached the summit, the hermit simply said, "The mountain told me you were coming." "Impossible," the traveler replied. The hermit smiled. "Your grief rang through the trees, echoed in the stones. Even the silence felt heavy." The traveler was stunned. He had spoken no words. But emotion speaks in a language deeper than speech, a language all of nature understands. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately sensed something had just happened? Laughter moments before or a heavy argument, even if no trace remained. The room felt charged. This is not imagination. This is your body attuning to emotional echoes, invisible yet palpable. In relationships, especially deep ones, these echoes are stronger. When someone is thinking of you with intensity, their emotion moves outward. If your inner world is still, you may catch that vibration like a feather on the wind, a sudden pang of joy, a chill of sadness, a memory that arrives without cause. This is why inner clarity is so vital. Without it, we confuse inner noise with outer signal. We cannot tell if what we feel is truly from another or merely a shadow of our own unrest. But with stillness, we become instruments, finely tuned, able to feel the distant string that resonates in unison with ours. In nature, you'll see it often. A flock of birds turning mid-flight as one, not by speaking, but by sensing. A dog who waits at the door just before his master returns home. A mother waking moments before her baby cries. These are not coincidences. These are the rhythms of emotional energy. Sent, received, understood. There is an old quote attributed to the Chan monk Han Chan. The mind is a guest in the house of the heart. It does not linger where the heart is closed. Emotion, when real, leaves its scent. When someone thinks of you with longing or love, the heart opens. And if yours is open too, even slightly, the guest enters. So what can we do to become more attuned to these echoes? First, we must purify our inner space. Resentment, distraction, fear, these are loud guests and they crowd the house. Make space for silence, for contemplation. Let yourself feel what arises without attaching to it. The more still the heart, the more clearly it hears the knock of another's soul. Second, we must trust. Modern logic teaches us to dismiss the subtle, favor only what is seen, but the deepest truths are often invisible, like wind or fragrance or thought. To feel when someone is thinking of you requires trust in your own sensing. Not every stirring is theirs, but some are. When you learn to tell the difference, the world becomes more alive. And finally, we must release the need to grasp. These connections are not meant to be held tightly. They pass through like birds in flight, sometimes returning, sometimes moving on. To feel them is a gift, not a guarantee. You may feel him think of you when your hands are in water, or when a certain song plays, or when dusk settles and the air cools. You may not know why, but you will feel the warmth or the ache or the breathlessness. That is enough. Let that moment be complete in itself. As you walk through life, remember your thoughts are not locked within your mind. Your feelings reach beyond you, and so do the thoughts of others, especially those whose hearts have once touched yours. Presence makes you ready. Emotion echoes make you receptive. And through this, you do not need to search. You only need to listen. The journey inward continues. With each breath, each moment of stillness, you become not only more aware of yourself, but also more attuned to those who, even in silence, are reaching out to you. In a quiet temple surrounded by mountains, a young student once asked the master, "How can I feel what others feel? How can I know if someone far away is thinking of me?" The master, sitting beside a small stone pond, replied without turning his gaze, "Wait for the wind to stop. Only then will the water show you what is reflected." The student returned every morning and sat in silence, watching the pond. Some days it was disturbed by breeze, other times by falling leaves. But there were rare moments when all was still, and in those moments, the water reflected not only the sky above, but something deeper within the student himself. Something he hadn't noticed before. This is the nature of inner stillness. It is not passivity. It is not emptiness. It is a form of deep readiness, a gateway, a key. The gateway opens only when there is nothing trying to push it. This is the paradox. The more you chase a sensation, the more it evades you. The more you grasp at the wind, the less you hold in your hands. But when you become still, like the pond, you begin to reflect truth, both within and around you. To feel clearly when someone is thinking of you requires no special power. It requires the absence of inner noise. Most people seek to do more. But the secret lies in doing less, in allowing the body to rest, the breath to slow, and the thoughts to settle like dust after a storm. Stillness is not just physical quiet. It is the letting go of the inner striving that constantly asks, "Is he thinking of me? When? Why?" These questions stir the waters, but if you sit quietly long enough, the answers appear not as words, but as feelings, subtle but unmistakable. A woman once shared how, after years of practicing daily meditation, she began to experience sudden sensations of closeness, as if someone had whispered her name from a far room. At first, she dismissed them, but over time, she noticed these sensations coincided with messages, phone calls, or dreams involving a specific person. "It felt like a thread between us," she said, "and I could feel when it was touched." This thread exists for all of us, though few take the time to become aware of it. In ancient writings, the Chinese sage Zhuangzi said, "The perfect man uses his mind like a mirror. It grasps nothing. It reflects but does not hold. Therefore, he triumphs over all things and suffers none." This mirror, like mind, is the essence of stillness. It receives, it does not demand, senses without interpreting. And in this sacred state, when another person sends their thoughts, especially thoughts rooted in genuine emotion, you receive them not with logic, but with being. Imagine sitting in a room lit only by candlelight. If you move too fast, the flame flickers and shadows leap. But if you sit quietly, flame becomes steady, and in that light you see clearly. So too with your own awareness. When your mind is still, when your breath is soft, when your heart is open but ungrasping, then and only then will you feel the whisper of another's attention. The method is not complex. It begins with daily discipline. 10 minutes of silence, a return to the breath, a place where nothing is demanded. Over time, the body becomes a temple, the mind a sanctuary. And into that sanctuary, the subtle presence of others may enter, as gently as incense in still air. Some days you may feel warmth, other days a sudden memory. On some mornings, a dream that lingers too long to be meaningless. Trust these moments. They are your soul's way of recognizing another soul reaching out, not with hands, but with presence. And then there is the deeper truth, one that underlies all others. The truth that self-mastery awakens intuition. That the more clearly you see yourself, the more deeply you understand others, even when they are not speaking. There was once a monk who spent years chasing the ability to read minds. He traveled across valleys, studied under many teachers, and exhausted himself in search of some external method. One day, a weathered monk in a cave asked him simply, "Do you know your own mind?" The seeker was silent. The monk smiled. "Then how can you ever truly know someone else's?" Self-knowledge is the root of all perception. When the inner world is confused, we project the confusion onto everything and everyone. We misinterpret silence as rejection. We mistake our anxiety for intuition. As we discipline ourselves through breath, stillness, kindness, and clarity, we begin to separate illusion from truth. To feel when someone is thinking of you does not begin with them. It begins with you. It begins with purifying the lens through which you see, so you no longer color everything with fear, longing, or self-doubt. When your mind is no longer consumed by stories, assumptions, endless inner dialogue, what remains is a space vast enough to feel, to truly sense. In daily life, this can be felt as a kind of inner calm. A woman might sit by the window with a cup of tea and suddenly smile, for no reason. Her memory rises, uninvited but welcome. She does not push it away nor chase it. She allows it. Later, a message arrives. I was thinking of you today. This is not a rare gift. It is a human capacity, dulled only by distraction, brightened by discipline. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus once said, "To know oneself is the beginning of all wisdom." When you begin to know the roots of your own thoughts, you start to see when a thought is not yours, when it enters like a breeze through an open door, not born from memory or worry, from connection. This is the space where soul recognizes soul, where energy moves across unseen paths, where someone's thoughts of you become more than imagination. They become felt experience. This sensitivity can only live in a still place, a place tended by patience, by daily returning to the breath, by walking slowly, speaking less, listening more, watching the way the morning light rests on a leaf. These small practices deepen the well of awareness, and in this deepened well, you begin to draw water not only from your own emotions, but from the presence of others. You will know when it happens. Not through grand signs, but through peace, through that soft thud in the chest, through that inexplicable calm that arrives with someone's name, through the way a song suddenly feels like a conversation. So let your daily path be one of devotion, not to them, but your own clarity. Sit often, breathe slowly, question less, feel more, and know this: when someone thinks of you with their heart, that thought is not confined to their mind. It travels, and if you are open, quiet, and present, you will feel it not as fantasy, but as reality made visible through the sacred silence within you. Let this be your temple. Let stillness be your teacher. Let self-mastery be your path. You will no longer wonder if someone is thinking of you. You will know, in a world that values volume, the soul speaks in whispers. The ability to feel when someone is thinking about you isn't a gift. It's a skill, a sensitivity that blossoms only in the garden of stillness. Try this method, not just once, but again and again, and you may awaken to a deeper language, one without words, one where hearts speak across time and space. When you feel it, you will know. You are never disconnected, only distracted. Let this be your practice. Return to this path, and you will not only sense others, you will finally begin to sense yourself.